Imagine waking up tomorrow, checking your bank account, and seeing this message. Your account has been temporarily restricted. No warning, no explanation. Just like that, your money is frozen. You can't withdraw. You can't transfer. Your card stops working. Payments start failing. And suddenly, something you thought was completely under your control isn't anymore. Now here's the part that most people don't realize. This doesn't just happen to criminals. It happens to regular people, every single day. And the scary part is, it can happen instantly. So the real question is not if it happens, it's why it happens. And once you understand that, you'll never look at your bank account the same way again. Let me explain. Most people think their bank account is just a safe place to store money. You deposit cash, your balance goes up, and you can access it whenever you want. Simple, right? But behind the scenes, your bank account is not just a storage box. It's part of a massive financial monitoring system. Every transaction you make, every transfer, every deposit is being analyzed, not manually by a person sitting behind a desk, but by automated systems, algorithms, risk detection models. And these systems are constantly asking one question: does this activity look normal? If the answer is yes, nothing happens. But the moment something looks unusual, even slightly, the system reacts. And it reacts fast. That's why accounts can get frozen in seconds. Not because someone reviewed your case personally, but because a system flagged you. Now here's where it gets interesting. What counts as unusual is not always what you think. You might assume it's only big suspicious transactions, huge amounts of money moving around, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's small things. A sudden change in your behavior. A transfer pattern that doesn't match your history. Logging in from a different location, receiving money from a source the system doesn't recognize. Even something as simple as moving money too quickly between accounts. To you, it might feel normal. To the system, it looks like risk. And banks don't take chances with risk, because they operate under strict regulations. Anti-money laundering laws, fraud prevention systems, compliance requirements. If a bank fails to detect suspicious activity, they can face massive fines. We're talking billions. So from their perspective, it's better to freeze first and investigate later. That's the reality. And this is why the system is designed to act fast, not carefully. Because speed protects the bank, even if it inconveniences you. Now let's go deeper, because there's another layer most people don't understand. Banks don't just look at what you do. They look at patterns, consistency, behavior over time. Think of it like this. The system builds a profile of you, how you normally spend, how much you transfer, where your money comes from, where it goes. And as long as you stay within that pattern, everything is fine. But the moment you break that pattern, you stand out. And standing out is what triggers attention. Let's say you usually transfer small amounts, and suddenly you move a large sum. Or you've never received international payments, and suddenly you do. Or your account has been quiet for months, and then suddenly becomes active. These changes don't automatically mean something is wrong. But to the system, they raise questions. And in finance, questions often lead to restrictions. Now here's something that might surprise you even more. Sometimes accounts get frozen, not because of what you did, but because of who you interacted with. If you receive money from an account that has been flagged, you can get flagged too. If you send money to a suspicious account, same thing. It's like being connected to risk, even if you didn't create it. And this is where things can feel frustrating. Because from your perspective, you did nothing wrong. But from the system's perspective, you're part of a pattern. patterns are what it reacts to. Now let's talk about timing. Why does it feel like this always happens at the worst moment? Right when you need the money. Right when you're about to make an important payment. That's not coincidence. It's because systems are designed to trigger at the moment of activity, when money is moving, when risk is highest. So instead of waiting, the system intervenes immediately, and once that happens, everything stops. Now here's the part that really catches people off guard. Getting your account frozen is fast. Getting it unfrozen is not. Because once the system flags you, your case usually moves to manual review, and now you're dealing with compliance teams, verification processes, documentation requests, proof of funds, identity confirmation. Sometimes it takes hours, sometimes days, in some cases even longer. And during that time, your money is still locked. This is where people realize something uncomfortable. The money in your bank account is not as liquid as you thought. Yes, it's yours, but access to it can be restricted. And that realization changes how you think about control. Now, before you panic, let's be clear. Banks are not doing this randomly. They're not trying to target you personally. They're protecting themselves and the system. Because financial crime is real. Fraud is real. Money laundering is real. And without these systems, things would be chaotic. So the goal is not to avoid banks. The goal is to understand how they operate. Because once you understand the system, you can move smarter within it. You can reduce the chances of getting flagged. You can avoid unnecessary risks. You can stay within patterns that don't trigger alerts. Simple things, like keeping your activity consistent, avoiding sudden large unexplained transfers, being careful about who you send money to, and making sure your account information is always updated. These small actions make a big difference. But there's also a bigger lesson here, and this goes beyond just bank accounts. It's about understanding control. Because in today's financial system, control is layered. You have ownership. But institutions have oversight. Systems have rules. And access depends on both. That's why some people choose to diversify. Not keeping all their money in one place. Using different financial tools. Creating flexibility. Not out of fear, but out of awareness. Because the more you understand how money moves, the better decisions you can make. And that's really what this comes down to. Awareness. Most people only think about their bank when something goes wrong. But by then, it's reactive. What you want is to think ahead. To understand the system before it affects you, so you're not surprised. So you're prepared. Because once you see how fast things can change, you stop taking access for granted, and you start thinking differently about your money. So the next time you open your banking app, don't just look at your balance. Think about the system behind it. Think about how it sees you, how it evaluates your behavior, how it reacts to patterns. Because, in a world where decisions are made instantly, understanding the rules is the only way to stay in control. And trust me, that awareness alone can save you from a situation you never saw coming.